This song was created with heartbeats of children in need. Find out how it can help frontline health workers bring hope to millions of children at everybeatmatters.org.
Hi, I'm Marshall Mitchell. I'm public access, and so are you.
Hi, with us today is Steve Boss with Arkansans Against Guns on Campus. Steve, how are you?
I'm well today, Richard. Thank you for having me here.
Well, it's okay. This is, now, in 2015, this is like a hot button issue. Actually, it seems like all through the 21st century, this has been a hot button issue. Not just having guns on campus, but having guns in every facet of American life. What interested you in this subject?
So I got involved in this topic in 2010. A state representative was running for office in 2010 here in Arkansas, and one of his platforms
Is that Charlie Collins?
That was Representative Charlie Collins, correct. One of his platform items in his campaign was to allow concealed carry on college campuses across the state of Arkansas.
Now, he keeps bringing that up, too, every session.
He does indeed. He's run this same bill in the legislature in the last 3 consecutive sessions in 2011, 2013, 2015. He ran essentially the same bill. In 2010, it died in committee. In 2013, he managed to get it passed, but only after he was forced to amend the bill to put in a provision that would allow colleges and universities across the state to opt out of the law,
right, which
is some fancy legislating, because he passed a law that lets everybody ignore the law so long as they vote on an annual basis to do so, which they have done consecutively for every year since and unanimously across the state. There's not a single campus on state that has agreed to allow concealed carry on the campus. So in 2015, he ran the same bill again with the opt-out clause removed, and it failed to advance in the Senate and therefore did not pass into law this year.
So he'll bring it back up next time.
Absolutely, he'll bring it up next time, no doubt.
Anyway, so that got you interested, that got you involved.
Right, that's exactly right, did get me involved.
Is that when you created the group Arkansans Against Guns on Campus?
Arkansans Against Guns on Campus started in 2012 as a group of students actually at the University of Arkansas who were opposed to Mr. Collins' proposal to allow concealed carry on campus. Turns out that the students are not any more in favor of this than the faculty are. They don't want an armed professor in front of their room. They don't want to sit next to an armed person in their classroom. And so the students actually organized the organization. And then some faculty and other interested citizens around the state also got involved with the organization. And currently we have over 1,000 people statewide that follow us and help us get the word out and help us act with social activism again to keep guns off our campuses.
That often seems to be the case, doesn't it? It's like faculty and students are opposed to it, but it's people who aren't involved in the process at all. People on the statewide level, people in the state legislature, they're the ones who are trying to force it.
That's correct. That's absolutely right. I mean, This bill has been opposed by every college administration in the state. It's been opposed by students. It's been opposed by faculty. It's been opposed by law enforcement. It's been opposed by the state police, opposed by local police, opposed by college campus police. Nobody wants the law, but they keep putting it forward anyway.
So why do you think this is such a big issue now? I mean, why do you think it's so important for these forces to want to have guns on campus?
You know, it's a very odd behavior. I don't really know what motivates this particularly. I mean, we live in a time right now where, you know, it's part of the conservative agenda, I think, to allow people to carry guns. It's perceived to be their absolute Second Amendment right. Or I should say that they perceive the Second Amendment to be an absolute right in many ways. It's not an absolute right. In the really famous Heller versus District of Columbia case that the Supreme Court settled in 2008, Justice Scalia made it very clear that this law was not a blanket approval of concealed carry everywhere, that he actually exempted and made it very clear that states had the right, or organizations or institutions had the right to limit concealed carry in sensitive areas, particularly government institutions and schools.
Now, isn't it interesting, the same people who want to allow guns on campus don't want to allow guns in the state legislature.
Correct.
They'll allow guns in other government buildings, but not in their building.
That's correct. Absolutely right. It is interesting, isn't it?
Yeah. That's got always. Well, the NRA, at the NRA conference this year, they didn't allow guns at their conference.
That's correct. They had no working weapons were allowed at the NRA convention in Nashville just last week. That's absolutely right.
I thought that was just really sweet. There's, but a lot of people say, and I read this quote, I guess, on your Facebook page, that someone suggested that this whole idea of having guns everywhere is sort of a solution from the 18th century.
It is indeed. I mean, it's you know, it's the way we used to behave in frontier America, and even in frontier America, in the Western United States, one of the first things that was required is that you had to check your guns with the sheriff.
Dodge City.
Exactly.
Wyatt Earp.
That's exactly right.
Right.
Right. And so it's not even a good solution from the 19th century, and quite honestly, on college campuses, it's really a solution that's looking for a problem.
Yeah.
We don't have an issue of, you know, extreme violent crimes leading to murder, homicides on college campuses across the United States.
But there's been an hysteria built up that you need a gun because wherever you go in life, you know, now of course it's terrorists, but there's some crazy person or a terrorist is going to attack, and some stalwart, steel-eyed citizen is going to be the one person who's going to be able to stop them.
Yeah, I mean that's right. I mean we've created a society where people think we have to be hyper vigilant, and there's danger around every corner, and we're never safe anywhere we go, and it's just nonsense. I mean, we all live our lives most of the time without any real conflicts, without any real danger. I mean, you know, you're right to say they've created this hysteria that somehow someone's going to come into the grocery store and open fire. Well, you know, that happens a handful of times around the country, occasionally every year, but there's tens of thousands of grocery stores, and they almost never happens. Most of us have never had that happen in any grocery store we've ever gone to in our entire lives. The probability of that happening, while not zero, is very, very small. You're much more likely to have a terrible accident in a crosswalk, get run over by a car, or get in a car accident on your way to the grocery store. There are any number of things that have much higher probabilities and are much more lethal in your life than the probability that you're going to be assaulted with a gun.
It's our movie mentality. And I think the movie mentality also, people kind of assume that just the average citizen is going to be able to stand there calmly and take out a would-be assassin.
Right. Yeah, I agree. I mean, I think that, you know, people don't really realize, you know, fantasy violence on Hollywood movies and television shows is exactly that. It's fantasy violence. It's not the way things really go down. And I think we have an abundance of people in our society who would attest to that. We have many, many military veterans who are veterans of combat these days. They've seen what combat's really like.
Right.
They've seen what that situation's really like. There's even a body of scholarly research to show what the physiological responses are to stressful situations such as shootings in buildings and things. And the probability that a completely untrained person is going to behave and operate efficiently under those circumstances is near zero.
Right.
I mean, even people who train, we see police officers all the time in stressful situations shoot everything but the suspect.
Exactly.
Right?
Exactly.
So and they train with guns frequently.
Yeah. But still, we cling to this. We cling to this notion.
Right. That's right. That's exactly right.
And in fact, Kansas just got rid of all their whatever passed for safety lessons there for guns.
Correct. Kansas just passed a law that will allow any individual to carry a concealed weapon without a permit of any kind whatsoever or any kind of training.
Because if you watch a John Wayne movie, that's enough. That's all.
Indeed.
That's all. That's all.
Well,
the
you know, I
instruction
expect some courageous Kansas town, perhaps Dodge City,
Yeah.
will require citizens to check their guns with the sheriff if you're
Right.
going to go out to the grocery store.
you need. Right. So, but there's things that some people say, Mike, do you think it's an urban myth, or the NRA even has this myth that we're in constant danger wherever we go?
Absolutely, it's totally absurd, and they prey on people's fears, and you know, it's again on a daily basis, the probability of something horrible happening is not zero, but it's extraordinarily small. You know, I'm 55 years old, and nothing really horrible has ever happened to me yet in my life. And I don't anticipate tomorrow morning that something bad is going to happen either. I mean, I live my life as I live it, and you know, I don't go through life daily, and I don't think most people do either.
Right. It's like plane crashes. You know, it's only a tiny fraction of planes that go down.
Exactly. Exactly. You know,
Yeah.
And when there's a plane crash, the reason it's newsworthy is because those are unusual events.
Right. So now I was reading about some of the reasons we shouldn't allow guns on campus. And one of the reasons I think would be there's a fear that would be an escalation in crime.
Sure. I mean, I think that's certainly true. You know, there's again an abundance of scholarly research to show that in the presence of guns, crimes are more prevalent, people behave more aggressively. In the university environment, you know, we've modulated the bills in our own state a little bit. So, you know, Mr. Collins has been putting forward bills that allow just faculty and staff, or the grown-ups, to carry guns if they're properly licensed. He's resisted the attempt so far,
So far,
to allow students to carry guns. But, you know, there are states that do allow students to carry guns and allow faculty and staff to carry guns. And in the states where college campuses have permitted concealed carry, in every one of those states, there have been gun incidents involving concealed carry personnel in those states. Every single one. It's 100% probability that there will be gun incidents in your state if you permit guns on college campuses.
and in some cases, people shooting themselves.
Indeed, they have. The state of Idaho last year passed a law that allowed anyone with an enhanced concealed carry license in Idaho to carry a gun on their college campuses. And during the first week of the fall semester,
Yeah.
a professor in chemistry shot himself in the foot with the gun he was carrying in his pocket in front of a class of 19 students. And very fortunately, he was the only person injured in that incident, but it could easily have turned out otherwise.
Well, that could almost been like a you know, a class project, I guess, or a science lesson.
Well, you
Is,
know, I like to tell people that I have all the before data, and when these laws get passed in states, I start gathering the after data, and
Yeah.
we see what happens.
Yeah. Now, as a professor, would you want to be carrying around a gun?
Absolutely not. I have no intention to carry a gun in my classroom. I don't think guns belong in my classroom. You know, in part, I'm not trained to carry a weapon. I'm not trained to respond in that kind of a situation. I'm not a military expert. I don't train with guns. And I think that, you know, I don't think the students would feel comfortable with guns in my classroom. I don't think students would want to sit next to another student who's carrying a gun. I mean, I have a classroom with 220 students in it.
Yeah.
Many of the students don't know each other. I mean,
Right.
I wouldn't want them sitting, I wouldn't want my own daughter sitting next to another student with a gun who doesn't know who that person is or what their state of mind might be.
Yeah.
On any given day. I give tests out, and sometimes tests can be stressful.
And they're not,
I
and they're
get
not,
it.
and the average person isn't trained to be able to spot a
Absolutely
potential
not. And
troublemaker.
can you imagine in my classroom of 220 people, God forbid something would have happened, but if something does happen, imagine the chaos of 220 people trying to get out of that room at that moment at the same time. I mean, there's just no way, I think, that a reasonable person could respond effectively in that and not cause more damage
And practical purposes too. Are people trained to teach or to be an armed guard? Are they trained?
Exactly.
Are they there to learn, or are they there to guard their fellow students?
Precisely. That's precisely correct. I mean, I'm not trained to be the first responder to an active shooter incident.
Yeah.
In fact, that's why we have police, right? We've entrusted in a civil society, we've entrusted the police with that responsibility to be the ones who respond to those situations.
And we also have to put metal detectors in schools.
You know, I think that is potentially one of the things that happens. This is the law that was passed in Kansas in 2013 that allows guns to be carried in all public buildings except those that have metal detectors. So presumably if you're in those buildings, you're already safe because somebody can't possibly sneak a gun past a metal detector in any conceivable way, right? But you know, they have passed that law in Kansas, and so, but try to imagine putting metal detectors at every entryway to every building on a college campus. It just would be impossible.
It's ludicrous. It's ludicrous.
It's not possible to staff them. It's not possible to pay.
It only
to have
makes
that done.
it only makes sense to a state legislator who's never been on a college campus.
Or doesn't spend enough time there to know what the college dynamic really is.
Right, right. No, there's now your group, Arkansas Against Guns on Campus. Do you interact with other groups?
Yes, we do. We actually interact with a number of different groups across the United States. There are actually active groups opposing campus carry in all 50 states. We interact with them. There's a national group that opposes campus carry that we work with, especially during legislative sessions. These laws are coming up in state after state after state. I think this year something like 15 or 18 different states have considered concealed carry. Interestingly enough, it hasn't passed in a single one of them yet. And so that must tell you something, that this law keeps coming up, it keeps failing. And you know, in recent history, meaning this century, Utah passed a campus concealed carry law in 2004.
Right.
Nobody else did it until 2012, and they only did it then because they were ordered by the Supreme Court to do so. And Colorado implemented concealed carry in 2012 for their campuses statewide, but that was only because the Supreme Court ruled in favor of an individual who sued the University of Colorado for his right to carry a concealed weapon on campus. And then Idaho last year fell for it, and the immediate result was a professor shot himself in the foot in a classroom with 19 students. So that didn't make anybody on the campus safer, particularly a professor who's now called Lefty. Hop along.
Now, of course, Texas, is getting closer to allowing guns on campus.
Maybe so. We'll see what happens. There's a bill moving in the Texas legislature. You know, whether it will actually come to pass. Interestingly enough, the president of the University of Texas system, Admiral McRaven, who was the commander of U.S. Special Forces, who was the commander who orchestrated and ordered or designed the raid that killed Osama bin Laden with U.S. Special Forces, is absolutely opposed to campus carry. Here's a man with an extensive military resume, extensive military experience, understands what the nature of combat is, and he's quite convinced that campus carry, one, is unnecessary on college campuses, and two, just creates an unnecessary danger for everybody else on the campus.
I read an article last night, a lot of parents in Texas don't want guns on campus.
I think many parents nationwide would not be comfortable with the idea of their child being in a classroom with either an armed professor or an armed student.
I know, it sort of boggles the imagination when you think about, and I just, for me, I can't get past the mindset of the people who want to insist that people carry guns. It's almost like if they can get past that, they'd almost require people to carry guns on campus.
I mean, I think that's right, and in fact, that's the direction they're going, is attempting to require that people do it. You know, they're not trying to make it a privilege or a right. They're trying to make it an absolute requirement. And again, I think, you know, the majority of people really don't like the idea. I think these ideas are being pushed forward by a very small but very vocal minority who wants to just push this agenda and force it.
Of course, one of the groups pushing it, of course, is the National Rifle Association.
Absolutely right.
Which is nothing more really than a front for big business.
Correct. Correct. I mean, they represent the firearms industry. The firearms industry wants to sell guns, And the best way they can sell guns is to convince people that they have to have a gun to protect themselves. You know, they've kind of saturated the market of hunting rifles. I mean, shotguns and rifles that people hunt with, you don't need an arsenal of those. You need one of each. So you can only buy so many. And so they've really marketed assault weapons and semi-automatic pistols for personal self-defense, and trying to convince everybody absolutely that this is something that you must have, or you're not going to survive American society in the 21st century.
God knows all the doomsday preppers need their guns. There's, in fact, even in Kansas, where they have this draconian list of what people on public assistance cannot buy, they let them buy guns.
Interesting.
Because they might want to hunt.
Sure.
Because anybody in a city can go out, just go buy hunt for their food.
Yeah, it's good hunting in the city.
Yeah. So how does your group get the word out to other people?
We are active on social media primarily. We're active. We have a Facebook site, Arkansas Against Guns on Campus on Facebook, and there are members who are active on Twitter. We have an active Twitter site for Arkansas Against Guns on Campus. We're less active as an organization on that, but our individual members will take messages from our Facebook page and push those out on Twitter, and we're very effective at doing that. We work very closely, again, with all our members across the state. We have a large number of students at campuses across the state who are very active. And again, it's the students who really oppose this as much as anyone. They don't want this idea. They don't like the idea of having people walking around with guns among them either.
If after a shooting, a mass shooting or even a small shooting, does your membership increase?
Well, we haven't had to test that, really. We haven't had a mass shooting. Our membership increases when there's active attempts, when the General Assembly is in session and these bills are moving forward. We get a lot of activity on our site, and a lot of people are looking out, and we message out what's going on. We try to keep people updated. What's the progress of these bills? What's in the bill? What actually happens if the bill actually passes? What does it really mean? You know, we do a lot of outreach and education through our website, or through our Facebook site, I should say, to keep people informed. And our members actively share that information out with friends and others that they know as well. So when the legislature's in session, these bills are moving forward, our Facebook site will reach out to several thousand people per week. You know, we get several thousand hits per week of people just checking in to see what's going on and keeping updated with what we're posting on there.
Now, we were talking before about the psyche. Before the show, we were talking about the psyche of some of these shooters. And it's not just somebody, as opposed to like the guy in Colorado who went in the theater and just wanted to kill people.
Right.
Most of the people who go around and they want to shoot somebody, they're after a specific person.
That's absolutely right. When we look at the actual data of homicides that have occurred on college campuses nationwide, and let's be realistic and honest about it, there are homicides that occur on an annual basis on colleges across the nation. There are very, very few. In the United States, we see 30,000 gun deaths per year in the United States. On college campuses, we see a few dozen homicides, and about half of those are gun deaths. So it's a very small number of gun deaths that happen, or of homicides in general, but gun deaths are even a lower proportion on college campuses. But when we look at those individual cases, because there's so few, you can actually track them down. They're not hard to find. You can find news reports of how these incidents went down on a college campus. And most commonly, they're targeted killings. It's one individual coming on campus looking for another individual. Very frequently, it's a male looking for a female. When that person finds their target, they often kill that person, and then very frequently kill themselves. They're most frequently murder-suicides.
So are we talking about like something like stalking or demented ex-lover, something like that?
It's exactly. They're stalking incidents. They're jilted lovers. They're people going through marital difficulties of some kind. They're in a divorce, or there's an affair going on, or there's something going on. But there are individual incidents of individual people looking for somebody else, coming on campus looking for a particular person, and then when they find that person, they commit an act of violence against that person. And again, quite often, the assailant kills him or herself as well.
Right. And to be so young, and I mean, it makes sense to people. Sadly, it makes sense to someone in that state of mind to go kill somebody else.
And the other thing is that a lot of these murders, they're not young people. These are staff people at the university, or faculty members at the university, and their spouse or boyfriend or someone else comes on. So they aren't necessarily even college students that are committing these crimes.
Yeah.
In fact, we had that incident at UALR this year. I guess it was in February or early March. A faculty member went home on a Friday night and murdered his family, murdered his 2 dogs, and then set his house on fire and killed himself.
And how would having guns on campus have prevented that?
Well, or the other side, had he had his gun on campus, if he'd gone to his classroom that day, whatever was bothering him was pretty serious. We don't know the circumstances of what triggered him to engage in that incident. But imagine if he'd had his gun on campus and decided to go to class that night.
Yeah. Do you think that we'll ever get to the point where just there'll be so much repugnance about the idea of so many guns and so many deaths that the tide will turn against people?
I think the tide is slowly turning nationally. Again, in the United States, there's something like maybe 120 to 150 million gun owners. Maybe, we don't really know how many gun owners there are. There's a large number. We know that there are 300 million guns in circulation in the country. There's more than 1 gun for every person in the country. The latest survey results suggest that maybe about 32% of people own guns in the U.S. The vast majority of those 120 million people or so, you will never hear about. They own guns. They're very responsible gun owners. They go hunting, or they have a gun in their house for their own self-protection. Right. They're not aggressive Second Amendment absolutists or anything. The people we hear from who are really pushing this agenda is a very small, very vocal minority, and I don't think they're even supported by the majority of gun owners.
No.
Really, and so I think that the tide is slowly turning. I think we see pushback in various places. You're seeing increasingly large companies coming out and stating, particularly retail businesses coming out and stating what their gun policy is, and more and more frequently, they're telling people, do not bring your guns into our stores. We want a store that's a safe environment for people to feel safe when they come shopping. We want their shopping experience to feel safe. We know there's families in our stores. We don't want the possibility of guns going off in our stores, so leave your guns at home. Most recently, I just saw that Safeway and Albertsons grocery stores have come out with a statement to tell people that guns are not permitted in their stores, period.
One of the creepiest things I've seen in recent years are the idea of like automatic weapons holders en masse going to coffee shops.
Right.
It's like,
right.
That doesn't make me feel safer.
That was in 2012 and 2013. There were open carry rallies at Starbucks, and Starbucks didn't take that for long before they said, we're not really keen on this, so leave your guns at home, folks.
Yeah.
And they came out with corporate policy and just told people, don't do it. And again, people don't, when someone's carrying a gun in the open, you have no idea who this person is. You don't know if they're stable or unstable. We don't know if they're a good guy with a gun or a bad guy with a gun. And my comment is, all these people are good guys with guns right up to the moment they become a bad guy with a gun.
Yeah. And a big stumbling block, I think, are elected officials who so often seem to be just working for the gun industry.
Well, exactly. They're pandering, right? I mean, they're just pandering. They're taking campaign contributions from gun industry or from the NRA directly or from other organizations that want to promote gun rights of various kinds. And they're just carrying water for these industries. It's payback for campaign contributions. There's no doubt about that whatsoever. There's no other reason to be pushing these laws forward, particularly when you're told repeatedly by large members of the public or the affected constituencies. In the case of our college campuses in Arkansas, everybody in a college campus, the affected constituency, told them quite repeatedly and unanimously, we don't want guns on campus, and they pushed the bill forward anyway.
Yeah, but they're insist on pushing it. Well, Steve, my director is non-violently trying to tell us that our time is up for today. So
well, it's been a pleasure, Richard. Thank you for having me here today.
Thanks for being on the show.
All right.
Thank you for watching, and we'll see you next week.
Hi, I'm Marshall Mitchell. I'm public access, and so are you.
This song was created with heartbeats of children in need. Find out how it can help frontline health workers bring hope to millions of children at everybeatmatters.org.
It's called I'm a Poet. I am a poet. I know this because I bought a license. Had it printed at a copy shop and laminated. Now I carry it with me in case someone asks. It gets me into all kinds of places. I am admitted without question into police stations, the back wards of mental hospitals, the cadaver rooms of funeral homes. Everyone knows all poets are alike in some ways. Poets like to eat cabbage and beans. They handle rodents, steal from the produce counters of grocery stores, and peek into the eyes of the dead, searching out a glimmer of their own fear. Everyone knows poets are given to perversion. Poets like sex upside down from the rear with whips and chains, underwater and in public places. I knew a poet once who did it in a shopping mall. He flashed his poet's license and everyone knew it was okay. Poets are found in all kinds of places. Their natural habitats are the window ledges of 20-story buildings, center lines of freeways, and circus high-wire acts. Everyone knows trouble follows poets. Their marriages will not take. Lovers die under mysterious circumstances. Their cars get repossessed. They get fired, arrested, picked up, committed, analyzed, and lobotomized more often than the general population. Poets live on the outskirts of credibility in shanty towns surrounded by barbed wire to keep every dayness at bay. They slip on banana peels, tell sick jokes, pick scabs from the huge gaping sores of real-world encounters. Poets stay up all night, smoke and drink too much, shoot heroin each other and themselves. They swim in the blood of their comrades, paying homage to stars that burned themselves out years before they were born. And if you ask poets what they fear most, they'll answer right up without blinking. The thing they fear most is being safe and sane and normal. Given the choice, a poet will choose the path of a speeding bullet, even a speeding train or microbus, over the sanctity of a 50-year death.
Special at the Cosmic Kitchen Cafe. I saw this great plate. I asked what it was. Special of the day. I said I wanted one of those, but when it came, it wasn't quite the same. The spuds were mashed, not fried. The fish was broiled, and it still had its eye on me, it seemed. I flipped it over, a bit more blurry orb this time. Still the same tight gaze. I called the waitress, tried to send it back, but no, No way. My neighbor said he didn't like what he got. Well, we tried to trade. The plates stuck to their places. We stood up, tried to change our luck by switching seats. It didn't do a bit of good. Our food just followed us. We tried to feed each other what we had, but every bite of fish he got dripped grease, and mine grew eyes along its sides. We had to stop. We asked to see the cook. He took off his apron smeared with blood and stood by us. He laughed. He said, of course we didn't like what we were served. He said folks always got what they deserved, and when we ate it up, we'd get our just desserts. Night work, a vision after sex, a former lover slain in his own mythology. We killed that brass man at the top of his pyramid and left him to shine all alone, arms clawing the air. Before he had come to the top at the end, and now he met his end there. All around him his counterparts fell from the clouds and littered the fields. They have come to the end of their power as we have come together. Who would have known that making love with you would do that? Thank God it did. And that one in brass was the father of my boogeyman. I've run from the boogeyman for so long that I've learned his paths. His footsteps echo mine. His breath and mine are one. I've run from the boogeyman for so long that I've borne him children, and they've begun to chase me too. I've run from the boogeyman for so long that it's finally morning. I recognize his face in my mirror, but I eat my breakfast with you. And that one in brass was the father of my boogeyman. He's gone now. The whole clan will die soon. Who would have known that making love with you would do that? Thank God it did.
Burger, fries, value gun. There's never been a better time to buy.
Your living room is the factory. The product being manufactured is you.
Value gun. There's burger, fries, value gun.
I'll look at you. I'll look at you with all the eyes I've got. Eyes of love, eyes of lust, eyes of friendship, eyes of contentment, and eyes of curiosity. I'll drink in your curves under whatever colors they wear. I'll analyze, compare what shades look best. Where I find flesh, I'll study it hungrily, lay my eyes down along your body as if you were part of some magnificent banquet, and I could feast on you from among all the rest. Thanks.
This poem is from my book, Dreaming Over the Edge, based on a dream. Thank God he was a worm. Must have been a seizure shut down my mind. I come to on a stretcher. How far gone am I? Gone enough, I reckon. An oily medical student, lust on the brain, says, you can get this sickness from the wind between your legs that comes with each passerby. Real bad, he wants to be my next breeze. He wheels me into a vacant operating room, pokes and probes and slimes on me. I'd show him if I weren't so sick. A foul wind pushes on my backside. Trade me, girl, trade me. What you want? Codeine, Dilaudid, morphine? Trade me, girl. God saw to it that he was such a worm. Elsewise, I might still be nodding off in that operating room, wind flapping through my thighs.
This goes out to Cherry. I could only take this feeling, sell it to the world. I never have a need for money, and humanity would be
she's home watching. Now this song could be sung as a general sense, or it could be sung in a specific sense.
Okay.
I sing it in the specific.
Okay.
Lovely lady, haven't seen her in a long, long time. You know she's always on my mind. Sure would like to see her again today. If she only knew how much I need her when she's not around. My soul aches while my heart waits like a lost child waits to be found. And in my mind I see her, she's everything I wanted to be. And the only thing she cares about doing is taking good care of me. Lovely lady, haven't seen her in a long, long time. You know she's always on my mind. Sure would like to see her again today. Such a lovely lady. If I could be with her just once more, I would love her like never before. We would have one another for a while. I never know where she's coming from, it doesn't matter where she's been. All I know is when I'm in her arms, the world seems nice again. She doesn't always look the same, and she has a lot of different names. But I always seem to know her when I see her, and it's loving time again. Lovely lady, if I could be with her just once more, I would love her like never before. And we would have one another for a while. Such a lovely lady. If I could just see her again, maybe it wouldn't have to end. And I wouldn't be here wishing like I am now. Well, my lovely lady, I haven't seen her in a long, long time. You know she's always on my mind. Sure would like to see her again today. Sure would like to see her again. See her again today.
The Smiler Rag by Percy Wenrick.
grab-assing. Sunday night the lesson begins. You want to teach me how a woman will wait for a man to make the first move? A real woman, you say, will not go grab-assing a man's sensibilities just because she feels like it. A nice woman waits ever so delicately for a man to decide when the time is right. You want to teach me to be shy and gentle, but I don't have a talent for it. Waiting is death. Desire can go rancid. Even frozen it starts to turn, stinking up the house within your window. Better to use it all up and make a fresh batch. You want to teach me how to mop and sweep and cook. You want to get me used to the bit in my mouth, but I am laughing too hard. I cannot be broken to field or house. Too many others have tried only to be thrown, their bones crunching against the rock-hard earth. Wednesday night you give up, cook dinner yourself. Spaghetti from a can burns on the stove while I dance you into a corner, grab-assing all your stereotypes in unwomanly fashion.
I kind of souped this song up from when I wrote it. It's a boogie woogie song. It's about down on Dixon Street. Sitting out on the front porch picking up on Ralston Street. The old tomcat, he's laid on the rail and old dog's laying in the feet. Sam and Iris are out in the kitchen cooking up some delight. When they come out, we'll do the boogie woogie. Yeah, we do the boogie woogie. Oh, my love to do the boogie woogie, it makes me feel so good. Come on now and do the boogie woogie, I really think you should. Let your hands start clapping and your toes start tapping, we'll have a real good time. Come on now and do the boogie woogie, yeah, we do the boogie woogie. I went down and listened to the Duck Lodge Boogie Boys, they were sure putting me down. When they did that old boogie woogie, it sure made a beautiful sound. It make you get on up and let your backbone slip, but your soul keep going too. Come on now and do the boogie woogie, yeah, we do the boogie woogie. Oh, my love to do the boogie woogie, it makes me feel so good. Come on now and do the boogie woogie, I really think you should. Let your hands start clapping and your toes start tapping, we'll have a real good time. Come on now and do the boogie woogie, yeah, we do the boogie woogie. Listen to the Duck Lodge Boogie Boys, they were sure putting down. When they did that old boogie woogie, it sure made a beautiful sound. Make you get on up and let your backbone slip, let your soul get to going too. Come on now and do the boogie woogie, yeah, we do the boogie woogie. Oh, I love to do the boogie woogie, it makes me feel so good. Come on now and do the boogie woogie, I really think you should. Let your hands start clapping and your toes start tapping, we'll have a real good time. Come on now and do the boogie woogie, yeah, we do the boogie woogie all day. I love to do the boogie woogie, it makes me feel so good. Come on now and do the boogie woogie, I really think you should. Let your hands start clapping and your toes start tapping, we'll have a real good time. Come on now and do the boogie woogie, yeah, we do the boogie woogie all day.
This song was created with heartbeats of children in need. Find out how it can help frontline health workers bring hope to millions of children at everybeatmatters.org.